Well, he'll be completely satisfied with the way the trial went, talking about how the evidence spoke for itself. Let's talk about this. Joining me, I got Mike Brooks, our law enforcement analyst, with us here. Also, Joanna Greenwald, criminal defense attorney, joins us. Great to have you both here. Mike, let me start with you. He's talking about the evidence speaks for itself. Well, the trial I was watching was pretty much prosecution evidence from the start of the case to the end. Videotapes, co-defendants, everyone pointing the finger at this guy, and they're not putting up any case.
Projectiles, shell casings coming all from the same gun. It sure does speak for itself. And, you know, if the closing goes well, I don't think you can call a timeout if the closing doesn't go well, Vinny. So what does he mean by that? You know, it's just, you see, the whole interaction, the whole last 2 days, you see Mr. Etheridge right next to the defendant, and while people are on the stand, leaning over, talking to him, you know, yucking it up, there is nothing funny about the murder of these two people whatsoever, Vinny. And I thought their behavior at the table was atrocious.
And it wasn't just when the jury wasn't there. It was also when the jury was there.
Yeah.
That's what I don't get. Joanna, let's talk first about the fact that there's going to be no defense cases. Is there some strategy here that I don't know about, or is it simply this case is about life or death?
How about I don't understand this one? Rarely have I think anyone has ever seen me at a loss for words. But it has happened today. I am at a loss for words. There's no defense here that's been presented. What we have on the table is possible death penalty, to call no witnesses to show bias, alibi, anything, any forensic something. That's just beyond me.
Well, is it possible that he did it? His attorneys know he did it? He told them that he did it, so that takes him off from testifying, and maybe they just try to save their credibility in front of this jury when it's time to argue for life or death.
Even if that's the case, you don't wait for the very end afterwards then to plead for, hey, reduce my sentence, and you had to put something that's in the record that would then show for a reason to reduce this person's sentence as far as culpability level. But there's been nothing to say, I wasn't there, it wasn't me, or someone else was the trigger person. Additionally, what we touched on was as far as his choosing not to take and speak on his behalf for defense. He does not have the burden. That's the prosecution who has the burden to prove it. So he doesn't have to go up there. And the judge giving an instruction to say, hey, listen, you can't take a negative inference just because he's not up there. But we all know that just because he's saying it doesn't work out in real life. Everybody looks at when someone doesn't say something in their defense, especially when you have two people who were murdered and people who were wonderful people murdered and children who lost their parents, not to say something, even though he doesn't have the burden to. You don't think that they're going to look at this negatively? So nothing is being done for him. Also, one last thing, I want to make a major point. When he allocuted him, meaning that he asked him the questions, are you satisfied with your attorneys? Do you know what you're doing here? That's all to protect for a possible appeal. The only question he didn't ask him, that at least I didn't hear, was, are you on drugs? Are you actually?
I hope he's not on drugs. He's incarcerated, so hopefully he's not getting the drugs in the jail. That's interesting.
Sometimes, but they didn't ask that question because he may not be in the right state of mind. And to say, hey, everything speaks for itself, the prosecution did a great job. Okay, that's a great defense.
There wasn't a lot of cross-examination either. I mean, there were some witnesses that were cross-examined, the co-defendants, but a lot of the evidence, just kind of went in. Gene Casares joins us now from outside the courthouse there in Reasonable Doubt. That's all I could be thinking about here, unless there's some surprises coming up. Joanna, do you think there's a chance that there's a surprise, some way of interpreting this evidence, looking at the videotape or the testimony that we're not thinking of, that will just explode in the courtroom during this closing argument by the defense?
I actually think the whole group is delusional, to be honest with you, because a summation is not your case in chief. That literally is summing up what you presented as evidence. So as you were pointing out, actually, that using up the goodwill and trying to use that as, please, like, hey, if you find me guilty, I didn't put all these people on the stand, put you through all this, then at least just send me there for life. if that is the case and that is maybe their tactical plan, then why not have done a potential plea deal and then say, okay, then I did it, and the defense team works at that, okay, then I did it, just don't give me the death penalty, and then never have a trial, because we never have any witnesses to put him as anything in other light other than, because everyone's masked, other than he's the one that did it, and there's no sensitivity issue given from his side except to say, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
He should have taken a plea deal, and none of this happened. If this was,
I don't know if they were offered a plea deal. I
doing
mean, he may have had to just plead to the indictment. Gene, were there negotiations at all in this case that we've heard of?
Vinny, people close to the case have confirmed with me there was no plea deal offered ever. And even
from New York. Also with us, in-session law enforcement contributor Mike Brooks, who's here in Atlanta. Okay, let's talk about this defendant and what we've learned about him, what we've seen from him. This is a guy, do you think he understands what's happening, Joanna? I mean, he got up in court and said, well, yeah, the evidence speaks for itself. You know, I'm satisfied with everything the way it's going. And he seems to be very happy, smiling, waving to all the witnesses, Joanne, as they get ready to testify against him.
He looks like he's in La La Land and doesn't look like he's appreciating the magnitude of what he's facing. If you are sitting there as a defendant and God forbid you are facing possible death penalty as a sentence, there's no smiling, there's no waving. What you attorneys should be discussing with you is to be showing that at least that you have some sense of responsibility, of feeling sorry for what you did. And the fact that there are no people that were put on for his defense, not even for character witnesses. His wife went on there, but actually for the prosecution.
Yep.
But Donnie wasn't even used as well as a character person to just talk about what kind of person he was. I'd also like just to touch on, if you don't mind quickly, we just heard from Mr. Smith, Lonnie Smith, and there's also a gentleman, I believe, Tony Isa. Several people actually were in touch. Mr. Gonzalez tried to get involved in doing and carrying out this horrible scenario. The thing that's missing here is no cops were called when somebody
and I
told.
think the explanation, Mike, let me go to you on this, Mike, because the way everyone's described this guy is that he was always a big talker. Blah, blah, oh, yeah, we're going to pull off this big caper. And he's a little bit vague, but he's always talking such a big game. And person after person that we've spoken to says, well, nothing ever came of it. That's Patrick being Patrick. You know?
When he went into the auto report.
What we're getting. Go ahead, Joanna.
Well, on twofold, actually. In going along with what Mr. Brooks is saying, not only might he be a wannabe, but again, his stability level, which going to a defense that possibly could have been there but wasn't, was his mental stability, although those usually never work. No defense was put on for him at all. Not saying that it could have worked, but the fact was nothing was put on. The man is totally not with it. And what's even worse is that his father even played a role in what we heard before. So no one's taking the guy seriously.
Maybe it was learned behavior, perhaps. Let's take a listen to what former police Captain Bill Chavers testified to this morning. It's quite interesting. So police go to his house, Mike Brooks, and he says, is this about the Billings thing? All right, you can ask me whatever you want. If it's about that red van, I haven't been in that red van, and I'm not guilty of anything.
Yeah, and in that area, how many red vans like that that hardly run are there in Escambia County and neighboring Alabama? Probably where he still thinks he's the smartest guy in that room.
Delusional.
He is delusional. You know what, Joanne? You're absolutely right, because what did he say? Yeah, I know we don't agree very much, but I agree with you on that one.
Oh, I like it when that happens.
What did he say during the police interrogation? Hey, I watch Law and Order. I know what's going on. Yeah. Give me a break.
All right, let's do this.
You know what?
Attorneys have been throwing a lot of information at jurors in the last couple of days. That includes the sequence of events the day Bird and Melanie Billings were shot dead. We've put together a timeline that takes you through the day, starting with the moment that the intruders entered the Billings property. Oh, absolutely chilling. Let's break it down if we can. Let's take a look now at that video with Mike and Joanna here. Let's pop it up on the screen if we can, so we can break it down. We got it. There it is. All right, Mike, and as we look at what's going on here, you can see the guys that are entering. Here's Bird, and there's Melanie Billings as all this is happening. And